Great, sounds good. Thanks so much, Justine, for having me. Yeah, I was telling Justine that I have it set up so I have like my laptop to one side and then my computer with some of my notes on it on the other side. So if I'm awkward looking in the wrong spot, like those weird panning situations on TV, sometimes we'll see on those reality shows. But yeah, so if I forget to flick a slide or I think that I did, then just flag me down there, just, I'll make sure that I kind of do that. But yeah, but thanks so much for kind of joining us today, guys. I haven't done like a webinar before. I've done talks and stuff before, so it kind of feels weird that I can't really see anybody. So I'll just assume that all my jokes are hilarious and people are just laughing like crazy because I don't really know what's happening. So, but if it falls flat, you can just leave a comment in the chat and I make sure I won't tell that joke ever again. But yeah, so I'm just gonna make sure this thing's kind of going here. So yeah, so like so yeah, obviously this is kind of talking about tips for cycling efficiently and comfortably. It's kind of a big topic, and it was hard to kind of condense it down there, but I try to do the best I could there with it without kind of overcomplicating it. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, obviously just make a note in the chat there. I have little questions kind of along the way too, just to kind of pick your guys' brain about things. So yeah, so we'll just kind of see what we get with that, and maybe that can start some discussions there at the end. So let's make sure this thing is working for me here. So yeah, so a little bit about me. So I've kind of been cycling since I was like a teenager, just kind of bombing around on a mountain bike. Then I got a bit more serious about it with kind of around 2008. I went to Oak Bay Bikes. Got a cyclocross bike there with a buddy of mine. Never rode clipped in before and wiped out on my first day just standing still. But my friend did too, so that was great. So we both had an experience together. But yeah, I kind of got into it about then and did some kind of longer rides, and then I finished my kinesiology degree at UVic. And then after that, kind of yeah, worked for a bit. Did some more biking, and then moved out to Ontario to do my physiotherapy program. And it was way too expensive to ship my bike with me, so I just bought another bike and at the CNE in Toronto, and then yeah, and then finished school there, and then convinced after working kind of in the Greater Toronto for a while, I convinced my wife, who's from the year above me in school, to move out this way. Wasn't sure if hardcore Torontonian was going to do it, but she was, and so she was willing to do it, and she loves it here, which is great. So yeah, so I kind of moved out this way, and then I got really excited when I stumbled across a bike fitting course that was hosted over in North Vancouver. So I took that and then left walking away with more questions than answers, as it usually goes. And then yeah, then we opened up our clinic, which is Dockside Physiotherapy over in Vic West, at the end of 2017, and then 3 months later had a kid. So that was a crazy time in life. And then yeah, then I did some more kind of coursework. And yeah, Justine mentioned that yeah, I have my advanced diploma in manual therapy, so did that, and then got another bike. And so I still have the blue one, but this is the new toy. And it seems like actually after graphing things out, when you look at your life over a timeline, it's kind of interesting. And I realized like, oh, every time I do something with school, there's a bike involved. So yeah, so that was kind of interesting. But anyways, so I just kind of bought the bike at the wrong time because I bought it on the weekend before we had to close the clinic down for COVID. Wife wasn't too happy with me on that one, but it's been keeping me sane. So she probably likes that part of it. So why I kind of got into bike fitting. So I've always been interested in bikes, like I was saying, just kind of tinker around with them. And so now I could get paid to do it. But that's kind of a joke. That the main reason is that obviously I want to get a better understanding of like how my patients are kind of moving on their bikes and get a natural idea of what their setup is and how they look, especially if they are having some issues with pain and discomfort. So especially if they're kind of telling me before I started doing this, like, oh, I'm getting pain in my knee with biking, and you know, I have a decent idea of maybe what was kind of going on, but it obviously doesn't compare to actually just having them right in front of you and doing the movements and that sort of thing, and then like, oh, okay, I see what maybe is going on there, and making some adjustments on the spot. So yeah, it's been really awesome to kind of implement into my practice there for sure. And I guess that kind of brings to the point of kind of the bike fitting thing, is that that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. And so in terms of what you guys can do, so I hope everybody kind of walks away with a better understanding of like how bike positioning can affect like your comfort levels and performance there too. And yeah, give you a little bit of tips and tricks on how you can play around with some stuff if you're noticing a few things while you're out there riding. Yeah, so I guess that kind of brings me to my first question, which would be just looking to see if you guys happen to know what the difference would be between bike sizing versus bike fitting. Sometimes the terms get interchanged, and so good to see. I'm not sure if it's going to work, but if you guys want to type some stuff into the chat box there, go for it. I'll give you guys a few moments with that. I'm not sure if that's going to go through, but do you think is that have you seen anything kind of pop up, Justine? Or
are you wanting folks to type in their answers?
Yeah, if they have, yeah, just kind of looking to see if people know what it is, just to get an idea of just what just get like a baseline from people. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so we've got some answers here. Let's see. So the difference between bike sizing and bike fitting is bike size is before you buy a bike. Size is size. Oh, sorry, I'll turn on my. Size is size of bike, but it won't fit necessarily be a good fit.
Yeah.
Bike fit after you have the bike.
Totally.
Sizing is set by the manufacturer, range of sizes that the bike could fit, whereas fitting is changing the range of the rider. I think these are all guesses.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so everybody's right on track with that. That's perfect. Yeah, sometimes it's not super clear, so that's great. Obviously, we're talking to a cycling community, so I'm not surprised that people know what they're talking about, which is great. That's awesome. So yeah, the main difference is just like everybody's been saying, which is great, is that the sizing is just trying to determine like the size of frame for the most part for the person, where the fitting part is kind of the art and science piece of actually making that frame and the components on it actually fit to the person and what their needs are and their goals are for actually going out and doing some biking. So well, it's great. So you guys are kind of spot on with that one for sure. That's awesome. So with that, I mean, there is, good Lord, there's a ton of different ways to kind of calculate it. So sometimes they kind of have it broken down into kind of chart format. Sometimes they have it, there's different kind of versions of it, and sometimes you can go online, like this one on competitivecyclist.com, and you just kind of punch in a bunch of different measurements, and then it kind of spits out the size of frame that you want, or you can use some really basic little formulas too, just using like your inseam. And so it is a bit different, like as you kind of saw there, between like road, hybrid, and kind of mountain bike. But it gives you kind of like a rough idea about what it can be. And so, but it is kind of tricky unless you actually just go there and obviously kind of try it in the shops, because I mean, you can have, somebody can have like a really short inseam, but like a really long torso, and vice versa. So somebody who's 5'10" could technically ride a good range of frames depending on the manufacturer in theory. So we just have to take these human differences into consideration when we're doing the sizing and the fitting part. Sometimes they have different charts that split it into kind of male, female, which is kind of silly to some extent, because it's more so like your dimensions as opposed to like your sex. So sometimes it's yeah. Honestly, just kind of go with obviously what kind of works there for you, and then kind of go from there with the fitting part. So when so obviously when you kind of crunch all the numbers, if that's the route you kind of want to go, it gives you an idea of the size of the bike based on like the seat tube, and which I think kind of we'll kind of work on the next one there with it, but you pretty much just kind of go from like right from the bottom bracket kind of like up to the top of the seat tube there. And I just want to see if I can get this going here with that one. So yeah, so like the number you'll get will be kind of on that red circle that's highlighted on there. And then that's the part that they're kind of talking about when they're referring to frame size of the bike. So let's say you get a bike and you feel that it's properly sized, then like how do you go how do you know if more adjustments need to be made in order to actually like fit your bike to you? So I usually say you'll probably get some subtle hints from your body if you need to make some adjustments to it. So you might want to kind of consider making some changes if you start getting some, like some discomfort in various parts of your body, or if you're putting in like a ton of effort and you're not really getting too much out of it in terms of like performance, whether it's like speed, I guess, is the biggest one, or like kind of like boom for power, kind of like going up a hill. And then obviously if you find that you're kind of walking around with more and more padding on your hands and on your butt and all these other areas, then it probably means you're putting too much pressure on these spots. And so that'd be a case where, again, you want to kind of shift where you're putting the load to it. So yeah, I don't even know what they use those pants for, but I just saw it online. I started to laugh, so I'm like, I'm using that one. So kind of let's talk about kind of some of the basics there of a good fit. So with this, main contact points of the bike are the hands, the seat, and your feet. And so these points kind of feed off each other to support and disperse your weight on the bike. And so if it feels like there isn't really much pressure on one of these points, as an example, like let's say on your hands, then it probably means you're putting the other two areas, like your butt and your feet, are kind of picking up the slack. And so if your butt or your feet are the sore points, then theoretically what you want to do is shift your weight maybe more onto your hands, or the area that doesn't really have that much pressure there on it. And sometimes that can kind of solve a few issues there for you. And it's not always, this isn't always the case, and it's not always simple as this, but that's kind of the general idea with it. So I was going to say for my next question was going to be, just looking to see if you guys know or what your thoughts are in terms of like what angles should be roughly for like the elbows and your shoulders and your knees when you have the proper bike configuration sorted out to fit you. And again, you can kind of punch it into the messaging there. If you guys find this is annoying, I don't have to do this. I just thought it'd be good just to kind of gauge things. But yeah, if you have some ideas, we'll take a couple moments and you can go for it. Go on to this.
So I haven't seen any questions yet, but it might take just a couple of minutes, or a couple seconds.
Yeah.
And
no worries. I mean, yeah, we don't have to spend too much time on it there, but yeah.
It might just be a slow reaction time in the webinar.
Okay, that's okay. Yeah.
Or maybe no one knows.
That's okay. Hey, that's what obviously we'll talk about, and that's okay. But yeah, so there's different. Sorry, these pictures are not the greatest quality. I was trying to take them out of my book, and also too, you'll see a splattering of the Bike Fit logo over everything. I had to get permission from the Bike Fit people, and they said, yeah, use whatever you want, just have the logo on like all the images, and I forgot to put it on these too, but that's why there's this, like, it's a bit much, but I have to do it. But yeah, so roughly in terms of like, depending on what type of bike you ride, if it's like a road bike, you want a little bit of a bend in the elbows. They say roughly about 15 degrees or so. Shoulders, you want to have them about kind of 90 degrees. And the knee, when your forefoot's on the pedal and your crank arm is perpendicular to the floor, kind of in that 6 o'clock position, you want to have, well, this system was 27 to 37 degree bend. Other systems, very specialized, says like 30 to 40. It just kind of depends on who you're talking to, I guess. And your hip angle is kind of dictated by what the other ones are doing to some extent. And then with mountain bike, it's a little bit more of a knee bend, but the shoulder's roughly about the same. And the elbows are still a little bit relaxed too, but the mountain bike stuff, it's a bit more variable. The road bike stuff seems a bit more hardcore in terms of like what they want to see, but the mountain bike stuff, bar width and those extra things can be totally person dependent. So there's not a lot of hard and fast rules on what to use for that, but that's okay. So those are roughly kind of what we're looking for. So let's start by kind of discussing the contact points, or one of the first ones there, which is the hands. So I had an email actually from, or Justine actually passed an email from somebody a few days ago kind of talking about some discomfort that they were having. And so we were kind of chatting about some things to try actually with the height of the handlebars. And so there's a few different things you can kind of do to adjust it. So sometimes people find if they are putting too much weight on their hands and we want to shift them more maybe onto their butt a bit more and kind of bring them a bit more upright too, then we can do these few different things to kind of change it. So this is obviously kind of based on the kind of drop or kind of road style bars. But the first two things, the stem height and the reach, can be adjustable on more like hybrid or mountain bikes with as well. So you can have different stems in terms of like how much angle they're set at. You can flip the stem so it's pointing downwards versus pointing upwards. You can get adjustable stems, which are kind of neat. They're just a bit kind of bulkier. But you can kind of play around with that, and you can also play around with the number of rings that are kind of near the head tube, and you can kind of stack the rings up or down, and that will kind of change the height of the stem and the bars together. You can also get a different stem length. You can make it shorter, which will bring it a bit closer in towards you, and it will relatively kind of like lower the bars a tiny bit, and you can get a longer one if you feel kind of scrunched up. Which will bring you further away there with it too, which will kind of elevate them to some extent. And then with the road bike specific one, you can kind of change like the rotation on it too, which can raise or lower it obviously, as well as you can kind of play around with the hood position as well. So lots of different options there with it. But this is where it gets confusing, is that if you do change this stuff, then you'll actually have an effect on your shoulder and your torso angle and your wrist and stuff there with it too. So you change one thing and then you change a bunch. So that's where you kind of make some notes as you go if you want to play with this stuff. So it keeps you on track in case you make a boo-boo and you got to go back and try to fix it. Yeah, and so in terms of, so we talked about kind of changing the height of it. You also want to make sure, since we said it can change what your wrists are doing, if you look at them from the side, you kind of want to see, okay, if I'm riding with like the flat bars, where my brake levers and shifters and stuff are at, like, are they too kind of pointing forwards or tipped down? Because that'll change the angle of your wrists, and you want to have it so it's kind of roughly, when you're sitting on the bike, it's kind of shooting like a straight arm, kind of going in a straight line from like through the forearm and then into the hand, and then your lever is almost like an extension of your arm to some extent. You shouldn't have to bend down or bend up. So sometimes that can be a thing to play around with if people are having discomfort with putting some weight onto their wrist. Sometimes it can be bent too far back, as an example on that one. And then same thing with the road bars too, is that sometimes if they're too low, then it looks really hipster and cool, but sometimes people can get a bit of wrist pain if it's too rotated down. So you just want to kind of rotate them up a little bit there as well. So yeah, so that's kind of the gist on that one there. And then of course you can also do a nice little finishing touch sometimes, which I'll do with people, is you can also play around with this kind of like, again, on road bikes, kind of tilt the hood in a little bit. And a lot of times when these things come out of the shops or out of the factories, is that the hoods are kind of pointing like straight ahead. And naturally we kind of have a little bit of like a turning in of our forearms just kind of at rest. So sometimes just kind of turning this in can make a difference. And usually you have to kind of peel away the grip part or the rubber part of the hood or the cover there on it, and there's like a little screw that you can kind of undo, and then you can just loosen it a bit and move it in and kind of tighten it back down, then flop the rubber over top. Yeah, that can be definitely more comfortable for people too, so you can definitely feel free to play around with that. So next thing in terms of height, another thing that can play into comfort is actually like the width of your bars. So the green, I'm not sure if you can see it too well there, but the green dotted line is kind of roughly the line that you want your forearms and your wrists to kind of fall into. So this is me showing two different things on my bike with the same bars, so it looks a little bit funny, but you can kind of see that if the bars are too wide, it's like wider than the person's shoulders, then people have a tendency to kind of like their wrists kind of fall like inwards, and then that can cause some discomfort in through there. or if the bars are too narrow and their shoulders are wider, then they're kind of, the wrists are kind of going in the other direction, and that can cause discomfort, potentially kind of on either side. But also kind of feels funny too. Usually people can kind of pick up on the bars if they're too narrow, but usually the wide ones people can kind of see like, oh yeah, that's a bit too much. So like I said, like this is a bit different for the mountain bike sorts of stuff. That's depending on how people want the handling to be, and the width of the bar is relative to the stem length there with the two. So but for the road bike bars, this is kind of what you're kind of looking for. And then unfortunately, you can't really fix this too much. You just have to go out and get a new set of bars. Good thing we live in Victoria, because there's tons of really good stuff on Use Victoria or online and that sort of thing. So you guys can get a good deal, and the shops obviously in town are really awesome too. So I'm sure you'll be able to figure out something if you need to. I think actually I ruined this question. I already gave it away, so won't worry about this one. Got talking away, that's went way off script. But yeah, I kind of really said you want to have the bars that are about shoulder width. So you're looking from like your AC joints, your acromioclavicular joints. So it's the little kind of bony part, kind of right at the very end. I wrecked mine last year, and it's a common cycling one to have if you wipe out, but to hurt that joint. But yeah, that's the points you kind of want to go between as your measurement. And then so when you have your arms out straight on the bars, your hands should be kind of right underneath your shoulders. Sometimes if it's too wide on the road bikes, then people can, like, they're just kind of doing more muscular effort, and they kind of feel a bit more kind of tensed up, as opposed to just kind of like stacking their weight on their hands. But again, like I said, it's different with mountain bikes, because you're not in that static position so much as compared to being on the road, because you're up and down a lot more and doing a lot more kind of dynamic sorts of things there with it too. So and can also kind of like cushioning, trying to cushion your body as you're going downhill. Yeah, lots of different bar widths with that one there. But that's generally what you're looking for. So for the shoulder, I actually don't really have too much to say about shoulder position and that sort of thing, because it just kind of depends on some of the other angles. So like I said before, they're roughly, you want it about like a 90-degree angle, and you want to make sure that you kind of have it about shoulder width. And you do want to ride with a little bit of a bend in the elbows, just for kind of cushioning some of the road vibration. If you don't really want to ride with your elbows fully locked out, because that's just more of this kind of like the bumps and jostles kind of get traveled up the bones there towards the upper back and the neck there, and into the shoulders there with it too. So you do want to kind of be in a position where you can kind of feel a bit kind of relaxed, and you got some wiggle room in the elbows there for sure. Yeah, so like I said, I don't really have too much to say about that one. The shoulders kind of goes where the other things go. So, but we want to keep those angles in consideration for sure. I feel like I'm blathering there a bit, but hopefully we're still keeping on track there. So for the seat part, so the other contact point, I was going to say, so this is a question that actually works this time, is so what more specific part of the body should be in contact with the saddle? And I said, just saying your butt doesn't count. So that people kind of know what part of your butt or undercarriage should be kind of situated on the seat. Again, kind of fire away in the chat box there too, and just kind of see what people come up with.
We have two guesses, or maybe answers: sit bones, or sits bones.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's pretty much actually what you're looking for sure. And there is some kind of variance in that there with it too, for sure. But that's generally kind of what you want to go for. Yeah, you don't want to be sitting on like it can be comfortable for the short term, but you don't really want to be sitting like right on your glutes, like right on your butt muscles, because it's okay for like short little zips around town, but if you're going out for like kind of longer rides, just having, it kind of makes your butt muscles actually sore, as opposed to kind of putting your weight like right through the bones into your seat. You don't have to pass through as much kind of muscle that way. So yeah, that's definitely a spot you want to be on. So with this sort of stuff, saddles there's a ton of different saddle widths. and kind of male versus female kind of sex body types are different. So generally kind of female is kind of like a wider pelvis, male is kind of more narrow. And there's been classically, they used to kind of divide up the different kinds of saddle types, where on the right hand side, you'll kind of see the classic male body type saddle is like pretty straight. And then female has a bit more of kind of like a divot or kind of like a cutout in the middle part of it there. And it's just because you can kind of see on the image on the left there, like the pubic bone in the front sits a bit lower in females. So when you lean forwards, you'll hit a flat saddle a lot sooner than you would if you had one with a bit of a cutout to it. So that's why they kind of incorporated that design into the female type saddles. So just for comfort's sake. But to be honest, like it doesn't really matter. Like I've had a few guys actually that ride female saddles because they just like it how it feels. Like it feels a lot better for them than like a straight one. I agree. I think I got to look for a new saddle myself. But yeah, again, it just comes down to anatomy. It doesn't really matter otherwise what they kind of want to term it. So we're all very highly variable, especially in this part of our body. Pelvis is like kind of the craziest shaped bone in the body there. I guess maybe besides our skull, but yeah, it's got huge variability to it. So it just really comes down to what feels best. This is actually something that just came out to market this year from the Bike Fit people. So they call it the Bi Saddle, and it's actually really awesome, but it's also really pricey. But for people, if they're really hardcore into it and they just can't get comfortable, this can be a really awesome option because you can adjust it in like a bajillion different ways. You can make it asymmetrical. You can make it wider. You can make it narrower. You can do a bunch of different things. Flat, more rounded. Really awesome. And so if you got the moolah, go for it. Absolutely, especially if you're having a hard time, because obviously nobody wants to stay off their bike, right? So yeah, so there's definitely options out there for you if you feel like you're having a hard time and about to give up. Don't give up. So in terms of like saddle sizing, like the old trick is called the triple thick cardboard trick, where you just kind of plant your butt on a firm surface on a couple stacks of cardboard, and you push in or bounce up and down a few times, just a little bit, and then you're just kind of taking a measurement with a ruler between the kind of the center points of the divots. But you need to take into consideration, going back to the sit bone comment. This is roughly a guideline of where you want to be, but you want to take into consideration of like how actually you want your riding position to be. So if we kind of look at this slide, it just kind of shows like different pressures which are normal, depending on the posture people want to be in, from like kind of more like leisurely sort of rider to kind of like performance, and all the way up to like the really aero guys. So you kind of see you go from having your weight off your sit bone, or sorry, on your sit bones in the leisure group, and you're pretty much riding on the nose of the saddle, which isn't that awesome, but it's nice and aero, and in the aerodynamic group. And so so with that one, like it just you're going to be kind of putting pressure in different points, but as long as you feel like it's roughly the right size there for you with that measurement, that's a good thing to kind of go by. And then the rest of it is actually, once you find that right width saddle, is just trying to find a saddle that has that width, but also looking at the other options out there exist for the rest of the shape of it, so that it's kind of hitting the other soft tissues in a comfortable way there too. So lots of considerations with the stuff. So for the knee, I don't know why I thought this was funny at midnight last night, so I threw it in. Good Monty Python quip there with it, but yeah, so I guess we're kind of searching for the holy grail of the perfect bike fit, but you'll kind of see that the knee angle and its tracking is kind of dictated by what your hips are actually doing to some extent, but it's also mostly where your foot or your feet are kind of relative to underneath you there as well. So the knee just kind of goes where the other stuff lets it go. And so for knee angle, what we kind of showed in the picture before. So you want to roughly have it in this 27 to 37 or 30 to 40 degree kind of range. So you can either actually do it with the goniometer and measure it out there while you're kind of sitting on your bike. And I would probably do it with your hands on the bars, because it can actually change sitting upright and measuring it versus actually being on the bars. So I do it that way. And then the other trick to do there too is actually obviously doing the whole thing, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with, of just putting the heel right on the pedal and just having it straight out at the bottom, and then adjusting the seat height to that. And then when you put your forefoot on the pedal, you'll have a little bit of a bend in it there. So that's a good kind of quick and dirty version of it. Usually works out pretty decently. The other thing that you could, if you want to take into consideration too, is they call it the Cox angle. So it's the knee over pedal spindle. And does it matter? It's a bit of a hot topic to some extent, but it really kind of comes down to like your comfort levels. And so you can adjust your saddle kind of forwards and backwards, or the height, if you are getting discomfort in your knee. And I actually have a little summary table at the end of this that kind of gives you a few little tricks that you can try, or some quick fixes you can try if you are getting kind of pain at your knees, and just seeing if that helps them out. But yeah, they want to have it in a nutshell, kind of like the where your patellar tendon or your kneecap, right underneath your kneecap, that tendon that attaches onto your top of your shin bone. You want that, when you're looking at it from the side, you want to be able to kind of drop like a plumb line or a laser beam from that point, and it should be able to hit like right through the middle of the pedal spindle. But with different bikes, you'll see that there's different, oh, that's blue bubble. With different bikes, you'll see a huge variability in this. So time trial is like really far forwards, and that's okay, because that's the style of riding. And then mountain bikes the other way, where you're actually, 1 to 2 centimeters behind that line. So again, it comes down to comfort and your performance and how you feel with that stuff. Yeah. In terms of other things for what talking about kind of knees. So knees can go like really kind of, people sometimes kind of ride really kind of knock-kneed with this, and where if you kind of shoot the lasers at them, you'll kind of see they're riding on the inside of the line. So a good little fix for this one is actually moving your foot inwards, or your cleat outwards, which is a bit of a mind freak. But you want to try to move your foot kind of closer in towards the bike, which will actually kind of bring the knee out. So I kind of did a little shoddy kind of image, but that kind of gives you roughly the idea of what you're kind of going for with it, to kind of straighten up the shin there and the knee as you're pedaling. The other version is that people ride, they call it V-twin. So you're kind of riding really kind of knees out, or not, or bow-legged, I guess you can say, which sometimes can cause pain on the inside or the outside of the knee, and actually sometimes on the inside of the ankle. So for this one, what you want to do is the opposite. So you want to move the foot out to bring the foot underneath the knee, to bring the knee inwards. And if moving the cleat all the way in to bring your foot out isn't enough, then you can actually also put in some pedal spacers too between the crank arm and the pedal itself, to kind of give you a little bit more distance on that one too. So there's a few different options for that, to get this sort of effect. Yeah. And then of course there's the feet, so the other contact point. So I was going to say, for this one, I think this is my last question. I'm already at the 40-minute mark, right, Karim? It was going to be what part of your foot should be, that's a spelling error. What part of your foot should be in contact with the pedal? I don't know what I was thinking with that one. Funny English, but yeah. So it's going to see what people are, what position their foot should be on that one. And if you guys want to type away there, go for it.
We have ball of the foot, the ball of the foot, ball of the foot.
Awesome, yeah. No, that's great, and that's exactly it. And you can kind of break it down into some other points there with it too. So yeah, some of these people ride like on their toes quite a bit, or they're kind of riding on their like around their arch. But yeah, you guys are totally right. You want to be right on the ball of the foot. And you want to have it so that if you kind of marked on your foot where like the little, you can kind of see kind of here, like wherever the heck my mouse went, there it is. If you kind of mark that kind of like the big toe knuckle and the little tiny toe knuckle, you want to have it so that the spindle's kind of going right between those points, maybe a little bit more towards the pinky toe knuckle there than the big one. But you want to be roughly in that zone. And the main thing is that you want to have it so that you have like even foot pressure. You don't want to be hanging more on one side of the foot than the other. So, but yeah, exactly right, guys. Yeah, you want to be kind of in that zone for sure. So with this one, it was going to say like if people are kind of on, if the pedal spindle is too far forwards, like towards the toes, sometimes people can get a bit of pain or numbness in the toes, or people can get like a lot of like heel drop as they're riding. So sometimes if people are having like Achilles or calf pain as they're cycling, if you look at them, they can kind of see that they're really putting like a lot of stretch on that spot. So if you actually, if you just kind of bring the spindle back there a bit, which brings your foot forwards, you can correct some of that, as well as obviously pressure in the toes. And they can also go the other way too, where if the spindle's too far behind towards the heel, people sometimes get some pain in their arch, or they can kind of like tip over the spindle and now they're riding really kind of toe pointed, which sometimes can bother people's muscles in like the front of their shin or just the front of their ankle there in general too. So then the fix to that one is obviously go the other way. So move it forwards there, but yeah. And then of course, there's got to think about the cops and all this too. So just checking that angle quickly after you've done that. It usually doesn't muck it up too bad, but you can do a quick little adjustment with that too if you need to with the seat. So in terms of foot pressure, again, we want it pretty even. So if you're finding that more of the foot pressure, if you're riding a bit more kind of knock-kneed and you are getting some pain on the inside of your foot, then what you can do is you can again kind of moving that shoe inwards will not only kind of fix the knee, but it'll also change how the pressure is distributed through your forefoot. And in some cases, that's the trick right there, and that'll do it. Other times you have to put like a little wedge on the inside of the foot, or you can put a little kind of cleat wedge between the shoe and the actual cleat itself. And then it can also go the other way too, where if people are riding a bit more knock-kneed and we kind of move the foot out with that, and then people can get a little bit of pain on the outside of their foot there with the two, since their knees are going out and their foot's going with it. Then if they're getting pain on the outside of the foot, then what you want to do is actually move the shoe outwards a tad. You sometimes can use wedging if it doesn't mess up the movement kind of quality there too much with that one. Or you can do like a little bit of, yeah, like I said, like a little bit of both with that, as long as it doesn't kind of mess anything up. But some people think it will, and you do it and the foot feels great and didn't change the knee at all. And you're like, oh, perfect. So let's go with that. So it definitely, it's always worth a shot trying it for sure. You can always undo it easily enough. So that was kind of a lot of info, but in a nutshell, I know we've kind of talked about, having like perfect symmetry with riding and all these angles and that sort of stuff. And so sometimes it's a bit of a battle between like trying to actually find like that perfect like position versus like comfort and taking people's differences into consideration. So you're really actually trying to like strike a balance in most cases and looking for the sweet spot. So you want to, you just want to take the person into consideration, which is the big thing. And I usually say there's no such thing as normal. It's just kind of an average of weird. We're all unique in our own way, and normal is like a huge continuum. And what's normal for some people is abnormal for others, and that's okay. It's just based on how we're built, and there's nothing wrong with that. But all this sort of stuff does highlight the importance of actually needing to screen somebody first to get a sense of what their normal movement patterns look like, and what their joint shapes are like and that sort of thing too, especially with like hips. Those can be quite different, like I was mentioning. And so there's no sense in trying to adjust somebody to fit a particular position if their body just won't go there, because that can really ask for discomfort kind of later on. But if you really want to achieve a certain position, then it might be something where you need to create an adjustment that might not be what the person wants to start with, but it's comfortable. And if they want to be more kind of tucked in an arrow, then you kind of gradually make changes over time to allow them to adapt, and they will get there. It's just, you just wouldn't want to go like wham, like right into it. We also want to be able to kind of work on other kind of movement patterns and stuff too. So kind of strengthening certain kind of muscle groups and practicing movements here with the two versus adjusting the bike. So there's all that component there too, for sure. So here's the chart I was kind of mentioning there. about some quick fixes you can try. These are general recommendations. Like I said, I probably recommend making one change at a time and just making some notes as you go there. So if you make a boo-boo, you can go back and change it. But these are actually work pretty decently for the most part. So I definitely give it a go if you're kind of experiencing any sort of pain in those spots for sure. Yeah. Okay, so it kind of brings us to the exercise part. Does anybody have any questions before that? I mean, we'll have a Q&A kind of session there at the end, but if everybody's good with this stuff, you can kind of give me a thumbs up emoji, or, well, I won't see it, but give it to Justine. She deserves it too. We'll kind of go from there. And I'm awkwardly going to run, or not run, but I'm going to move from my office here into our back room where I have more room, where I was going to show you guys a few things. So,
Evan,
yeah.
could you put your slide back one?
Sure.
That's just one of the questions.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And I guess while you're getting set up, if you don't mind, there was a couple questions at the beginning. If you have any suggestions for different angles on maybe like a commuter bike or like an upright bike? For
sure, yeah. So so that'd be more kind of on the hybrid end of things. And sorry if I'm giving anybody motion signals. Yeah, so for those sorts of bikes, there you'll kind of be more on the mountain bike end of things. That's actually it's a really good question. I don't really know if I have a good answer for it, to be totally honest. Yeah, it comes down to the comfort thing for sure. I mean, if you want, I was going to flash up my email there at the end for you guys, and so absolutely feel free to give me an email, and I can send you. I can dig around a bit more to see if I have any like hard answers for that one. And then we can kind of keep in touch with it that way there with it too, because yeah, I don't want to leave obviously you guys out of the mixer with it too. I know I was kind of on a road bike slant there with that one for sure, but yeah, I can definitely get some stuff there to you if you want to email me for sure. So sorry, that's not a very good answer. It's a comfort thing. It's tricky. It can be, you know, sometimes it can be more like 70 degrees of the shoulders. Sometimes people prefer more like 80 or whatever. So yeah, yeah, let's maybe be in touch about that one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. And I think if folks are done looking at this slide, maybe we can just have it so it's your camera if you're doing the exercises. Mm-hmm. For sure. So let me just kind of pull, or actually maybe, I forgot about this part, sorry. I'm going to talk about this really kind of quickly first, and then we'll do some exercise stuff. But I was going to say, yeah, before I show that, I usually say to people, like our bodies they really like, and they like to seek kind of variation of posture and movement, and we aren't meant to be in one position for an extended period of time, such as 8 hours at the desk or that sort of thing. And we're not harming or like damaging ourselves by any means, but our bodies let us know with like some aches and pains of like, hey man, maybe you should get up and kind of move around here a bit, just to kind of just give some variability, take some stretch off some tissues, and place them onto others, and kind of vice versa. So so obviously the same sort of thing with kind of cycling. We aren't meant to be on a bike for extended periods of time either. And so I won't worry about asking this question too much because I'll show it. But so to help ourselves out, I was going to say, what's your hunch on where we should kind of start with this sort of stuff? And like I already said, you just want to think about, yeah, taking stretch off certain areas and placing them on others, or strengthening different muscle groups and moving them around, that sort of thing too. So that's it right there. So the two definitely go hand in hand. And stretching isn't always the answer with this stuff either. Like a lot of times, people will come and see us, and they're getting pain in like their hamstrings or their glutes or that sort of stuff, and they're reefing away on it, and they're just like, it's not getting any better and that sort of thing. And they're definitely not doing any harm to themselves, but sometimes if you check the range of motion is actually awesome. And so but they're still trying to stretch things out there because they're thinking that's what they need to do. So in these sorts of cases, if the range of motion is good, that means that it's not a muscle length issue. So there's actually no benefit in actually stretching it. Stretching is also tension. So if it already feels a bit kind of tensed up, then you're just kind of adding in kind of more tension into it. And like I said, you're not doing harm, but you're also not like making any change either. So sometimes that actually works better just to kind of like move the area around and maybe give it a bit of like some light resistance bands or kind of weights and stuff there with it too, because it can actually work better to kind of actually use the muscle and warm it up, get some blood flow to it, as opposed to trying to just yank on it, kind of, so to speak. So, but again, it comes down to the person. Some people do need to stretch, but a lot of times people actually don't. And hopefully maybe some people out there are thinking like, oh great, I don't got to stretch, that's perfect. Maybe that's great. So don't waste your time there with it. But yeah, it just depends on what it needs for sure. Absolutely. So what we'll do is now we'll do the exercise demo. Obviously I didn't get enough sleep last night with our kid waking up, so sorry, kind of jumping back and forth there on that one. So if you guys want to do some of the stuff there with me, go for it. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull up my slide here, and I'll stop sharing the screen. Okay. So I have to enlarge it, right, Justine?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what I was going to do, maybe I'll do it this way so I can see myself. Oops. Sorry, guys. So I think actually my computer will let me do this. No, it won't. So come on, arrow. Let's go on an angle there. There we go. So these are some exercises you can do as a good kind of starting point. Again, I'm trying to figure out the best way to put it. Let's do that. Okay. So good little starting point for these guys. So the first one you can kind of do is, I'm just gonna put that down there, is welcome to my living room. This is my office during COVID. So it's good to be back in it to some extent. But first one you can kind of do is using the foam roller. I'm gonna try to not wipe out off my coffee table. So if we've kind of been in this position there for a while, or it doesn't have to be quite that low, you can kind of be upright. And so we're kind of rounded through upper back. Sometimes the body just wants to go in the complete opposite direction just to kind of get it moving. And I'm sure a lot of people have probably actually played around with this sort of stuff too. So you're pretty much putting the roller kind of at the bottom of the back, and you're just pretty much just trying to extend over it a little bit like that. And the key is just kind of rolling up and down. You might get a few odd pops here and there, but it can definitely be a good one there for it, just to kind of, again, bring it out of that flex position. You don't have to be super mean to yourselves. Maybe going up and down for like a minute or so can do the trick. But you just really want to focus on trying to relax and extend over the roller. Sometimes people turn it into a bit of a crunch and then they end up actually just staying flex, but then you kind of miss out on that kind of relaxation and kind of opening up part there with it too. So just going up and down, like I said, like that for about a minute or so, or however long you want to do once you're off the bike, or even you can even do it throughout the day actually, which can be kind of a nice one to kind of do after being at the desk. Oopsies there. Okay. And you don't have to have a foam roller either. I mean, you can take like a pillow and put it down there too, or a couple pillows, and just kind of relax over it. It's not as firm. So sometimes I'll say to people, you can even take like a beach towel and just kind of roll it up there too, and kind of stick it behind you. Let's go up and down like that a few times, and just kind of move the towel to different levels in your back, somewhere between kind of top the shoulder blades to the bottom. You don't want to do it on your neck or your lower back because they already have that curve to them, so you don't need to increase that further. But your upper back is totally safe to kind of go in that opposite direction. Another one you can kind of do, again, as long as you feel that you kind of have a hard time kind of opening up the chest, is kind of doing like a classic kind of pec stretch. So or even like a mobility one. So I can't show it too easily here because of the setup of the room, but the classic one where you're kind of in the doorway. You just want to have it so if you want to stretch out the right side, the arm is up, And the key is to having actually your elbow over top of your shoulder, and then putting the arm on the doorway and then kind of leaning forwards until you feel like a good stretch. If you feel like you really have to reef super far into the movement, then you might not actually need to stretch it. But just again, just to kind of help move things out of that position you were in, you can actually just kind of go into it until you feel a bit of a pull and then kind of come out and just kind of rock back and forth a few times with that one again for about like a minute or so, and then switch sides and doing the same sort of thing. If you are stretching it again, you can do like that 30-second holds for about 3 rounds. But again, just trying to keep that elbow over shoulder. Some of these people are kind of dropping down like this, or they do the classic one where they like hold on to something and they're doing that. You're actually not really getting much of a pec stretch. You're actually stretching more like your shoulder joint. And you actually might be getting a little bit of pull through actually the nerve that actually, or one of the nerves that kind of runs down the arm. So keeping it up like that will actually make it definitely more specific to the pecs. And then some other ones you can kind of do as well. This is more of a strengthening one. Again, just using those muscles that were on a bit of stretch there. So you can kind of lie down, and you can do these guys where you can do the ITY, so you can kind of pull them back into a T. You can pull it back up into a Y, and then you can pull it up kind of overhead into the I there with it too. So just kind of going back and forth between those guys can be good to get those muscles working there and kind of shortening a bit after being on a bit of length, and that can actually feel really nice there too. For the hip flexors, really common one that people do. A really good one would be doing it where, oh gosh, okay, we're good, is that again, if it feels totally short and you don't really have much mobility with this, just kind of going into it, doing that 30-second hold. If you feel like you actually have pretty good mobility, you can kind of rock back and forth, just like that. Again, as long as you're not doing too much arching through the back, kind of keeping it flat through there. Again, rocking back and forth for about a minute. But if it does need that stretch in the ear, because it's really doesn't really have too much mobility, then doing that 30-second hold for about the 3 rounds of that, and then switching the legs around the other way. You can also do like a butterfly stretch. So some people want to stretch out their inner thigh. So it's kind of dropping the feet out like that and kind of hanging out there for a little bit too can be nice. Also unloads the glutes there too. So sometimes they kind of like that as a position there as well. Again, hanging out there for about 30 seconds for 3 rounds. My wife's a pelvic physiotherapist or pelvic floor physio, so that's one of her go-tos, and she said I had to use that one, so I said yes, ma'am. And then another one you can do, you can put a band around the knees like that, or you can use a belt even, and you can do, now that you've kind of stretched out the front of the hips, you can use a little bit of the glutes more in their end part of the range that you usually don't hit while you're on your bike. You're just kind of lifting up and down like that there with the 2. And you can put, like I said, if you put the band around the knees, you can almost like press it into the band first and then lift up to there. And it'll get even kind of more hip activation there with the 2. And it'll also actually work out the back muscles there a bit as well. Yeah, after they've had a bit of stretch placed on them with riding as well. So, and the C star, that one was kind of a joke where you pretty much just kind of lie down on the ground, just like that. Just kind of open everything up and hang out there. That's usually a go-to position after you've been riding really hard. Just kind of flop down. So, yeah, so those are kind of those in a nutshell for sure. And I realized that we've already hit 12 o'clock there. So, sorry guys, I don't want to take up too much more of your time there, but so where was I going to go with those guys? I was going to say I was kind of talking to Justine before this earlier, is that I was kind of thinking about maybe doing a second webinar, and we're thinking maybe, end of July sort of thing would be a good date. Because I know I kind of cover a lot of like fitting stuff with some basic exercise stuff too. But if you guys want to learn more about some cycling injuries, because we talked about the AC joint, other stuff like knee pain or cyclist hips and that sort of stuff, I'd love to talk about more those sorts of things with you guys, and also to kind of debunking some myths and some new stuff that's come out of the literature in terms of like pain science and injury stuff there with it too, which is kind of neat as well, because it actually shines kind of a brighter light on things. It makes more of a positive message than the sometimes the doom and gloom of, oh, don't do that too much, you're going to wear yourself out, that sort of thing. So yeah, so that one's going to be coming down the pipeline too there in about a month or so. And I said there, for the folks that ask about the more like the commuter bike setup or hybrid bike setup, that's my email there, so totally far away. You can follow me on Instagram there, or Facebook, which is at the Bike Physio, or you can follow our clinic, which is Dockside Physio there too, on either Instagram or Facebook. I just started up the Bike Physio one, so that was a COVID project, but I didn't get as far as I wanted, but that one's still kind of in the works there on it, but I'm slowly kind of rolling out some more content on that one for sure. And like I said, as a thank you for attending the webinar and having your attention there today, guys. I'm totally cool with offering people a nice little deal there for if you did want to come in and do a bike fit. I'm not saying you have to, but if you were tinkering with some stuff and you're just kind of like, oh, like I'm still having some issues, totally feel free to get in touch with me either through the email or calling the clinic, and we can set you up there, and you can just use the little coupon code so we know. And I think Justine will be giving me kind of like a list of people that attended there too, so we'll totally have we'll totally know who you are there for sure. So yeah, I just want to say a big thanks for your time, and obviously a big thanks to Justine and the team at the Victoria Bike to Work Society. And yeah, this was fun. Like I said, I couldn't see your faces, so hopefully this was all okay. But yeah, that's great, and it's nice weather out there today, looks like. So hopefully people can tinker with some stuff and go out for some rides maybe after work or whatever else you have planned for the day. Yeah.
So Evan, I was wondering if you could share your screen so folks can see your email.
Oh, sure. Oh, did that not show? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me go for that again there. Well, that was a rookie move. Okay.
No worries.
Sorry about that. I'm chatting away here thinking it's all hunky dory. So, okay, so then I'll probably flash up a few other things here with it too. So, there we go. Sorry, guys. So that's there. So just my name. So it's Evan at dockside.physio.com. That's the Instagram and the Facebook information there with it too. And this will be going into like your resource database there too, right, Justine? So you'll have some information there with it as well. People can download this as a PowerPoint. I'm just going to clean it up a little bit and just take out some of the extra slides that had some of the animation stuff in it. It doesn't really need it, obviously, but yeah, I'll clean it up and then I'll have it for Justine so you guys can access it for sure.
Well, yeah, thank you so much, Evan. This
Yeah,
was a really great and full presentation. And yeah, for folks who also signed up, like Evan said, he'll be offering this 20% gift code, and I'll send this code also in a follow-up email. And thank you so much for following the Bike to Work Society and for attending this webinar today. Sorry we didn't get to the Q&A, but I see all your questions here in the question box, and I'll be sending them over to Evan as well. And like Evan said, his email is available. You can also email me. I'm Justine at biketowork.ca. Next week, we have another webinar coming up where we're inviting folks from the CRD, City of Victoria, and also BC Parks to talk about adaptations that are going on within those jurisdictions in terms of like space reallocation for COVID. So hope to see you all there. And yeah, you can support us by going to our website. We're always taking donations or looking for folks to sign up for our memberships. And yeah, there's more webinars to come. And like Evan said, there'll be even more Dockside Physio and Bike to Work collaborations. So we're looking forward to that in the future. Evan, thanks again so much for doing this with us. I think we'll close down the webinar now. But this is really awesome, and I can't wait to do this again.
Yeah, for sure. Same here. So yeah, thanks so much, guys. Sorry again for keeping you there. boy, I talked way longer than I thought. Hopefully it was okay there. But yeah, thanks for your time again. Yeah.
Have a great day. We'll talk soon.
Yeah. See you guys.